On Tuesday, sudden and intense downpour led to disastrous flood in the Kheer Ganga river. The sheer force of water, huge rocks and mud led to destruction and left 6 people dead. Many are missing. Houses and structures stand flattened. Dharali village is battered. The water and boulders went through the villages, destroying the homes and businesses in its path. Authorities say that about 20 to 25 hotels and homestays may have been washed away. The Army and NDRF search and rescue operations are still on, but this is not one-off event. The Himalayan state has been seen an alarming, when I use the word alarming, I mean it, alarming frequency of landslides, floods, cloudbursts, forest fires, even earthquakes in recent decades. According to the data from the Indian Space Research Organization, Uttarakhand recorded 12,319 landslides between 1988 and 2023. But more than 1,100 occurred in 2023 alone, showing an alarming acceleration. Now, Uttarakhand's geography is a key reason why it is so disaster prone. The state lies on the southern slopes of the young Himalayan mountain range, and the ongoing tectonic activity makes it unstable. Plus climate risk, plus construction, which is not planned, altering the river flows, leading to increased chances of glacial lake outbursts, floods, which is called gloughs, landslides. Natural disasters and climate change apart, there is an element of tourism, unchecked development, not handling fragile slopes properly. Tourism is central to economy of Uttarakhand, but it fuels rampant, unregulated construction across the state. For example, to accommodate growing numbers of pilgrims and tourists of Char Dham Yatra, more than 56 lakh people visited Char Dham in 2023 alone. Hotels, lodges, roads, shops are being built into unstable slopes and flood-prone riverbanks. But this is one part of the story. Himachal has witnessed its own share of problems. Lock-filled rivers going through a village, cars, buses falling into rivers, roads, highways being swept away, years after year, year after year. Manali, Mandi, Kullu, Kasol. The list of places being hit has increased, and unplanned development is leading to disaster and destruction. And if that was not enough, new multi-story buildings have come up all across the state. There seems to be an absence of management policy, as these unchecked constructions have dangerous implications. Now, let me start by introducing my guests. I am joined by Chandrabhushan, President and CEO, iForest International Forum for Environment and Sustainability; Harjeet Singh, Founding Director, Satat Sampada Climate Foundation; and Aarti Khosla, Founder, Climate Trends and Director, Carbon Copy Info. Let me go across to Mr. Bhushan first. Sir, now operations are taking place, NDRF is there, everyone is there. What is the big lesson? Do we need a new housing policy or a construction policy in Uttarakhand, Himachal? Do we need a new mechanism to tell people this is the way urban settlements are to be taken care of? Or do we need a new development model? What do we need to do to save our Himalayas, sir? Because if Himalayas are there, then the people will be there. If people will be there, then the society and culture will be there.
Well, I don't think that we need any new policy. In fact, I think we have too many policies. The disaster that happened in Dharali is already a declared eco-sensitive zone. It is part of Bhagirathi eco-sensitive zone. Things like the construction that you see and the devastation that has happened shouldn't have happened, because such multi-story buildings shouldn't have been there. And the eco-sensitive zone was declared not today. I think it was declared in 2012. So for more than a decade, this was a protected area. There shouldn't have been multi-story building on floodplains, but it is there. So as far as policies are concerned, we have enough of those. I think there has to be consensus within Himalayan states about their development pattern, what kind of development they need. Himalayan states are trying to replicate development pattern of plains, development that they see in cities like Delhi and Mumbai. Unfortunately, Hills can't copy plains. They are two different ecological and geological areas. The carrying capacity are very different. The geology cannot sustain heavy infrastructure. Slopes are unstable. Himalayas are young mountain system. Seismic activity is common, and climate change is adding to extreme rainfall and other disasters. All this is known. This is not new knowledge. And I believe that I don't think there is a consensus within the community, society in Himalayan state about their development model. I don't think we have given, there is any understanding of what is an alternative development model for Himalayas. Till the time we have leadership in Himalayan state itself, we will keep seeing this. We cannot impose new policy and regulation from Delhi. We have tried doing it for a long time. It hasn't worked. I believe that the time has come for Himalayan states themselves to decide what kind of development they want. If they want current kind of development with six lane highways and multi-story
No,
building, it is
no,
their call.
that's not that's not the way. We will not have Himalayas. Aarti Khosla, madam, your opening comments.
Well, I think there is something to be said about how the climate impacts are real and out there. While there is too much discussion on whether climate change is happening now or it will happen in future, the real impacts are for everybody to see. And there is a time till which you can even do evacuation or early warning. If you don't have proper early warning systems, how will you manage that? So really, you can look at the development models and you must look at the infrastructure development, but at least look at the things that you can do first and which you must, like automatic weather stations and proper surveillance, so that at least you have the monitoring and you have the data. And if this information was provided slightly in advance, you don't have the havoc that happened in 1 minute flat. So I think there is something to be said about having proper monitoring systems, the role of organizations like the Met Department and the National Disaster Management Agency to put proper early warning surveillance system. It has happened in other parts of the world. It has happened in India. We have done it in Orissa on controlling cyclone management and doing proper disaster management. And I think there is precedent out there in actually doing it for the Himalayas as well. As regards to what's happening to Himalayas, it's a really complex problem. It gets compounded in monsoons because the pattern of the winds is changing and more monsoon moisture is being drawn into winds due to global warming in other parts of the world, maybe even the Middle East. So you cannot just look at these things in a single unidirectional way. And I think our policymakers will also have to look at the complexities that come with it. Himalayas are extremely porous, and I think approving all the kinds of developments that are happening in Himalayas, that whole aspiration of what development is will have to change. I don't think that the people of Himalayas even want that kind of development which is actually being thrust upon them. So I feel that there is a little bit of honest conversation as well that is needed on the kind of development that we are forcing upon our very fragile states, but at the same time, try and do the bare minimum of putting automatic monitoring stations, having regular surveillance, doing early warning, whilst also being quite sure that early warning has its limitations.
Harjeet, there are two questions to you. One, we have made entire Himalayas accessible. You can go anywhere you want to. I understand the imperatives of tourism, but it means more people everywhere, anywhere. And ecotourism in itself has done the damage there. The people, in name of tourism and environmental friendly, sustainable living, have infiltrated into the entire villages. Second question to you is, what do we do with the construction? If you look at the construction, I specifically took out the clip with the entire house came down. What do you do with that? You can't build the houses the old way, it's too expensive. Rock and wood. But if you continue to build like this, it's not sustainable.
So Kartikeya, first of all, let me say I agree with what my friends Chandrabhushan and Aarti have said. And when we talk about tourism, there's a concept, well-established concept called carrying capacity and sustainable tourism. Both go hand in hand. And somehow we are only seeing tourism as a milking cow from the Himalayas and not understanding how much they can actually hold. And that's exactly the reason we are facing all these challenges. as Chandrabhushan said, these are young mountains and very fragile, eco-sensitive zones. We have all kinds of policies, but what we are not doing properly is real planning and implementation, which is absolutely missing in line with the kind of risks climate change is bringing. And when we talk about development, so somewhere the model is flawed. We are having planners who are sitting in Dehradun or Delhi planning for such ecologically fragile zones, and the construction is not in sync with nature. Of course, I understand that not everything can go back centuries, but the fact is, what kind of technologies you can adopt so that you actually don't do exactly the kind of construction that you are doing in the plains, ignoring the vulnerability of the region and the eco sensitivity that is required to be built in. So where are those models? So the fact is, we are not really building those kinds of models which are in sync with nature, and we have to, and we cannot just continuously depend on tourism which is inviting such kind of investment into construction. That's not sustainable at all. And I must also say that we have totally taken away power from village level committees and village level structures, and the decision making has moved so far away from these areas, and that's exactly the reason we are facing these challenges. And I must also underline the point that Aarti was making, that we are not really upping up our capacity in terms of understanding those risks. We need far more granular risk mapping. The early warning systems have to be now state of the art. There's no dearth of technology, but it's about planning and implementation, which has not happened. And that's why we have faced
Okay.
this kind of devastation.
Mr. Bhushan, a closing comment from you. I've really run short of time, but is all of this possible? Can this be possible without people participating into it? Because no policy is successful unless and until there's a support from the ground.
Fundamentally, you will have to take decision at the ground level, which is, local governments will have to decide what kind of development they want. That is the point I am making. We are trying to impose our will, whether on development or on environment. Please understand, we are also from Delhi trying to say what kind of environmental conservation should happen in Himalayas, as we are imposing what kind of development should happen in Himalayas. I don't think both of them can be decided even in Dehradun. Okay, there will be a broad policy framework under which the country and the state will work, but we will have to empower local governments to take decision. I think there has to be consensus at the local level in terms of what kind of development they want. Otherwise, you will have
with you.
This will continue.
No, I completely agree with you. I think there has to be more consensus, there has to be more conversation, but also on this note, I will say the state should not be hostage to the economic and business interest also. In Uttarakhand states, the business of hotels and hospitality, or I would say business of hospitality in itself has become a big lobby.